Good morning from the home studio in Middletown, Delaware. I'm Marshal Manlove from Delaware Sports and my sports reports. Happy, what is this, Tuesday now? Yeah, it is Tuesday all day. And on this segment of our show, we are going to have a chat with the executive director of the Delaware Interscholastic Athletic Association, Donna Polk. We're going to learn a little bit about her and what she does for our athletics and athletes here in the state of Delaware. And hopefully when I press this button, she appears. There she is. Welcome, Donna. Thank you for making the time to come talk to me.
Good morning. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. First of all, let's get to know about you a little bit. Now, you've took this job you were working with DIAA starting when initially?
November 2019, I was hired as the coordinator for athletics at
Okay.
DIA.
And then what were your duties back then when you first started with DIAA?
When I first started, I assisted then Executive Director Thomas Neubauer. My main responsibilities were overseeing and managing the sportsmanship program, um, dealing with all of the incident reports that we came in, providing the data in regards to our incidents that we had per sports season, um, providing referrals to sportsmanship committee. I also oversaw our officials registration process with that, and then assisted with championship operations and any other duties as assigned. But those were my main responsibilities when I first came in.
And then Neubauer got out of Dodge right in the nick of time.
He did. He sat me down one day and said, "Donna, I'm retiring in August," and I was like, "No." But it, worked itself out. He definitely has been a resource. Even now, I can pick up the phone and call Mr. Neubauer anytime, and he's always there, available and ready to assist and provide his knowledge with the years that he has spent here at DIA. So he definitely um, paved the way for me to be able to sit in this chair, as well as Mr. Charles.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I've known him for a long time. And then you officially took over the job in February 2020, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is going to be a little bit about your background. I know that you went to high school here in Delaware, and where did you go?
I went to Sussex Central High School, down Golden Knights, graduated, I will say 1987, proud of that. And I was a three-sport athlete there, played field hockey, basketball, and softball, and continued on playing basketball in college as well as a year of softball. So my foundation and roots are from Sussex County and coming from Sussex Central High School.
Yeah, so you went on to play basketball at Columbia Union College in Maryland, and you weren't a slouch either. You scored 1,000 points there. Do you know what your final total was there?
I do not, because my freshman year, I scored, I know, at least 300 points, and that information isn't captured in the actual record book. So my total actual points, I'm not quite sure of. So it was based on those 3 years. Um, but my freshman year, I know I had at least 300. So it got me to at least 1,000 and maybe 1,200 or 300.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Now, then you went to coach at the collegiate level, also at Bowie State University. Talk about your time there a little bit.
It was a great opportunity when I first got hired at Bowie. I was the associate athletic director of compliance, and I actually applied for the basketball job and did not get the basketball job initially, and then was eventually hired as the associate athletic director. So, having my background in both administration and basketball, when the basketball coach that was hired um, over me, he actually ended up leaving, and it was another opportunity where the basketball position became available, and I interviewed for it, actually got the job. So I was doing a dual role, being a head coach and associate athletic director. So it was a challenging time, but I enjoyed it. One of the goals that I had is I started coaching basketball is I wanted to see if I could coach at the collegiate level, and Bowie State is Division II. So I had that itch, and I was able to experience that for 3 years. We did relatively well. I think my record, if I remember, was like 55-26. We went to the CIAA finals 2 years in a row. Was disappointed, didn't get that crown, but we were able to be competitive, and I was able to, you know, coach Defensive Player of the Year twice. So I was really proud of that. And then also be able to be competitive within our region, being ranked also within our region while I was coaching at Division II level. So it was a great opportunity. Also had the opportunity of being on the Division II women's basketball committee who oversaw our basketball championships for Division II. I was the chair of our region for 1 year, and then was a member of our basketball committee. So that did our regional ranking. So that was also a great experience for me to be able to understand seeding and being on a committee and running tournaments. So that was kind of my experience as a coach, and then also being on committees.
So you come to DIAA then with a good knowledge of what coaches and athletes need to successfully compete at the high school level, and also at the collegiate level, of course. But now you're dealing with high school athletes, and since you're from the state of Delaware, you're aware of some of the nuances involved with the local athletics. So as director of DIAA, then what are your major responsibilities?
Major responsibilities overseeing the association, understanding that I have a board of directors that I'm going to report to, that will provide directives based on the authority that the General Assembly provides the board. So there's statute that I need to make sure that we're following, that the board has the authority and powers to do, and then we have our regulations that I need to make sure that we are adhering to with the oversight of the member schools. And then I also have a role with ensuring that I am following the policies and procedures within DOE. So it's a task. It's something that you have to truly understand the pieces that allow DIA to exist, and then within that existence, my authority and what powers that I do have as it relates to sitting in this chair, navigating and facilitating what the board's goal and objectives are, and then being able to facilitate that with our members association, schools, and then our committees. So it's a role that you definitely have to want to be able to be in. You have to own it. You have to be intentional in understanding those responsibilities and stay within the authority that you do have. So it is a joy for me. I love athletics. I love my job. It can definitely be overwhelming at times with all the responsibilities and the short amount of staff, but I truly enjoy my job. One of the things and focus that I would like to see us work on, and we're hoping to be able to start that, is the focus on our student athlete experience. And that's the reason why I'm in this business, and is to be able to make an impact on our young people. And ultimately, that's really why I wanted to have this job, is to be able to assist in improving and expanding on the foundation that is currently already there, and then bringing in programming to just make our sports and our athletic programs in Delaware better than what they already are, through providing programming for our student athletes, providing and setting up leadership development for our coaches, our athletic directors, to make sure that we are also competing regionally with the states around us.
So when you end up taking the executive director spot. It's February of 2020, and that's when the pandemic was starting to make its way into the the majority of states now.
Yes.
And heck of a time to try to deal with that, because now you're getting ready to run the winter state tournaments and prepare for the spring season as well. And you had to make a bunch of difficult decisions with a lot of different feedback from not only from coaches, athletic directors, but the Department of Education, Department of Health, and all that. And I know you don't make those decisions autonomously. What were some of the challenges initially that you had to contend with as all that was starting to unfold in front of you?
One, understanding what the board was wanting to do as we got those directives from the state level. Once COVID hit and we were all shut down, we were in the middle of our basketball championships. It was a Final Four was going to be the next round, and it was an exciting time. It was an exciting tournament on both sides, girls and boys, and we were all wanting to see what the outcome was, and to get that, that information on that Thursday to say we were no longer going to be able to have that championship, and then the board having to look at whether or not we even postpone or do we cancel. Those were difficult conversations. Those were conversations that were had, but the board came to a conclusion, and I had to make sure that that was carried out. It was difficult in that no one knew what was going to happen. We were all in territories that no one expected to be in. There was not a roadmap for it. There wasn't a plan for it. So, the board made decision based on information that was available and provided to them to ensure that there was, the student athletes were going to be safe, the coaches and everyone that needed to implement programming were able to do that safely. So leaning on our sports medicine advisory committee was definitely something that we had to do to ensure that health and safety occurred. But it was a difficult time to make those decisions, because you wanted to make the right decision. You wanted to make sure that the association was operating, but you also had to understand that we were dealing with a pandemic, and we didn't know, what was going to happen. It was a lot of unknowns. It was changing daily. And we had to make sure that we were supporting what the schools were currently doing as well, because we are extracurricular activity. So we had to make sure that what the schools were doing, we were also in line and supporting things that were happening, even, within the shutdown. There was nothing going on. And then as we started opening up, making sure that we are in line and supporting our member schools and that the programs that we're going to be able to be supported.
So hindsight's always 2020, and like you said, you didn't have a roadmap for that. And I know just everything was fluid all the time. It was from week to week, sometimes day to day, definitely month to month. Everything was changing, not only on a national level, but a state level. And then we're surrounded by a few states which have different rules too. So I know that for parents, athletes, coaches, officials, administrators, it was very, very frustrating. And you have to make decisions on the fly. But what lessons from 2020 did you take into the fall season for 2021 that you think worked, and what you might change for, let's say, 2022?
In regards to what worked, I thought what worked well was, our guidance that we put in place, collaboratively working with DPH, and developing that relationship allowed us to be able to manage and function within sports and allowing sports to occur. Constantly having communication with them, seeking their guidance and advice on what could happen and what could not happen was critical and crucial to how we were even able to open back up last year around January. So them trusting in us and following through on the plan that we put in place as relates to mitigating strategies that they recommended, that we adopted, working with NFHS guidance that was there, we were able to put a plan in place with the support of our member schools to carry out that and implement that through our regulation that allowed DPH to trust the member schools and, interscholastic athletic sports in Delaware, that we would be able to conduct them safely. So developing that relationship is crucial and critical, and we want to be able to continue to have that relationship because they understand that we're going to, comply and do the things that we need to do to ensure the safety of our student athletes while conducting sports. So I would say continuing that positive relationship to allow sports to occur with their guidance and respect, to understand that we will be compliant.
So a bunch of these championships, we had to modify some of the state tournament structures, and necessarily so. Some seasons were scheduled, so there were some open tournaments and all. But this year, there was a brand new structure in the state football tournament, adding teams, breaking down into 3 classes where there had been 2. How do you think that's going so far this year?
We are still evaluating it. Football committee definitely is going to have a look at how it impacted championships. We're going to be, the board is also looking at, we're going to look at the scores, and we're going to look to see what stats that we are having to see if this is actually working. I feel that games are more competitive at the level that it needs to be. We have 3A, 2A, and 1A, and now we have teams at 1A that are having success that haven't had success in a while. So to that degree, it's allowing our student athletes to have a little bit more success playing comparable teams. So the purpose of the realignment, some of that is coming out. Did we have a lot of blowouts the first couple of weeks? Most definitely. And those started to pan out. I mean, even in our championships, first couple of rounds, we've had, blowouts with scores. So we're definitely continuing to evaluate it as the first year within it. But I thought that overall, I like the 3 classifications because it is allowing programs now to provide more opportunities for our student athletes. And that's what we are in the business of, is providing student opportunities for our student athletes. And ultimately, that is the goal.
Yeah, and change is always inevitable in life too. If you had a crystal ball to look into right now and kind of explain what you see in there as far as some changes that might be upcoming in any of the sports in the next couple of years, what might some of those look like?
I know there are some sports that are wanting to go to a 3 classification system. We currently right now have 3 different formats. I think we have to kind of evaluate our structure as it relates to, do we want 1 division? Do we want 2 divisions? Do we want 3 classification system? And it's going to be about how administratively our schools are wanting to manage within those the 3 different formats. Basketball is one of the sports that have been looked at in regards to, do we look at 1 division? Do we look at 2 divisions? How does that look is the question, but that would be one area that we would have to focus on in these next upcoming years to ensure that, the equity that we're wanting to have is actually there. Looking at our public, private schools, charter schools, even how does that even pan out? Those are some of the areas that do need to be reviewed and discussed, and hopefully we will be able to continue to make changes to better our association within those 2 different topics.
So if a bunch of parents are watching you right now, what message would you like to deliver to them so that they know that the DIAA has their student athletes back?
One, I want to thank them for allowing their student, their daughter or son, to be able to even participate, um, to be open to opportunities that are there for their student athletes, that they are understanding that the opportunity is for their student athletes, and that we are going to do the things that we need to do to ensure that the mission that we have and the purpose that we have, we're going to adhere to that. We're going to provide programming. We're going to want to try and educate our coaches to be better, so that they are better prepared to manage their student athletes and provide leadership and guidance to them. Um, we are about developing the whole student, and being a part of the whole student, we need the parent support to allow that to happen. And there are going to be times that parents are going to be happy with coaching decisions, and that's just part of how, athletics is. It's going to make a student better prepared for their next level, whether it be a trade, whether it be going to college, whether it continuing their collegiate career with sports. It's going to prepare them. One of the things that I've always remembered was when I was in college and then I took that next step on to getting into a career, is that a lot of the interviews that I went on were happy that I was an athlete, because there are intangible skills that are going to be provided through just being an athlete, and it's going to make them more prepared for life. And that's what we're here to do, is prepare their sons and daughters for the next steps and chapters in their lives. And we just need their support and understanding in doing that, and allowing the athletic directors and the coaches to be able to put those programmings in place, understanding that we are not going to be able to make everyone happy. That's something, when you're in this business, you already know that. And that's something that I've accepted and understand, but we're going to make sure that we are here to carry out the authority and the powers that the board has within the statute, that we're in my position, that I'm going to follow the regulation and processes that we have in place. And I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be consistent in making decisions based on our regulation, based on our statute and policies and procedures. And fairness is going to be there. We're going to address issues as they come. We're going to hold people accountable. And that's what I am hoping that we will be able to make a difference and ensure that interscholastic sports in Delaware will be able to be improved based on that.
All right.
And it was a long-winded answer, but
No, that's perfect. I think you also were able to reach just the regular sports fan there as well, and we appreciate that. Well, I know it's probably lunchtime or another meeting time for you. I know it's lunchtime for me too. I just want to thank you for stopping by and having a conversation. You are welcome. You have an open invitation to stop by and talk about anything that you like. And in a moment, I'll just sign off. But hang on there just while I say goodbye to everybody who's watching. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donna Polk, the Executive Director of the Delaware Interscholastic Athletic Association, and we thank her for stopping by the show. Donna, hang on there, and I'm just going to close this out and say goodbye to you in private. All right? Thanks so much.
thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Donna Polk, the Executive Director of Delaware Interscholastic Athletic Association. I'll just remind you that again. All right, make sure that you follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch.tv, Facebook, wherever it is that we are doing this. And please be so kind as to subscribe. It is free to do so and free to watch, as you have just experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am Marshal Manlove, and now I am